Senator Katie Fry Hester, who's been joining us for a number of years at this summit. Thank you for always coming back and supporting us and educating the community on the legislation that you're working on, which is always good and impactful legislation. And so, just as a little bit of background, Senator Hester represents District has represented District 9 since 2019. With a background in agriculture and biological engineering from Cornell, she has worked in sustainability research, advocacy, and policy. A Marylander first responder and a WISP ski patrol volunteer. I don't think many people are at WISP today, unfortunately. But Senator Hester is a leading climate champion, sponsoring major legislation like the Renew Act study bill and the Energy Resource Adequacy and Planning Act of 2025, both of which I'll mention were vetoed after last session. And then those vetoes were overridden just recently in the special session that the Maryland General Assembly had. So congratulations on that victory, Senator Hester, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thank you to everybody who is here today for your interest in climate change and energy issues and the state of Maryland. It's really great to be here. Um, I was asked to talk a little bit about my work at PJM and then to talk specifically about a couple of the data center bills that I am introducing. And so that's kind of what my presentation will include. I think you already heard quite a bit about, PJM from Emily earlier. But for those who are just joining, obviously PJM is our regional transmission organization, and this includes Maryland and 13 other states plus DC. And the core job of PJM is to ensure reliability for electricity across the region. But obviously now it's challenging, and rates are going up, and reliability is being challenged. And this is largely, there's a number of reasons our energy prices are going up, but there is a large proportion that is driven by the new demand from data centers. Um, the Independent Market Monitor has done some research showing that over the last 2 years alone, this load growth has contributed to billions of dollars in excess capacity costs, much of which is being paid by households and small businesses, and also pushing PJM to come really, really close to those reliability standards. That is what keeps everybody's lights on. Um, and the deeper I dug into it, I just realized, how kind of broken PJM's governance structure really is. 80% of the voting power of all the stakeholders who have votes, they also have a direct financial interest in what PJM does. And so there's only a tiny fraction, that the remainder of the 20%, which includes the consumer advocates who are advocating for, the average price of electricity at the households here. So the part that I wanted to talk about, though, I thought was really interesting, and actually, it was a good thing that PJM did this. Oh wait, which was a critical infrastructure fast path process. But just for a bit of context, could we go to the next slide, and I'll just mention one thing. Um, uh, yeah, it looks a little different, but this is just mentioning that before PJM started this critical infrastructure fast path process, I worked with others at NCSL, which is a national conference of state legislators, and the Natural Resources, Energy, and Environment Committee, which I co-chair, which includes 250 legislators from all over the 50 states plus territories. And we were able to get through in August of 2025 this NCSL Data Center Power Generation and Grid Resiliency Resolution. And this was critical because it allowed NCSL to begin to lobby at the federal level for the issues that we're talking about today. And there were two key points I wanted to note from the resolution. Is first, and this is a bipartisan resolution that passed unanimously at our summit. Um, First, it called on the federal government to work in close collaboration with the states to develop cost allocation methods that ensure large-scale energy users pay their fair share. So basically, they're saying don't shift the cost from the data centers to the average, ratepayer. Um, Second, it also called for data centers to contribute to grid stability while protecting local consumers, especially excuse me, when there are disruptions at times of peak demand. And so we came into this critical infrastructure fast path process with the backing of, you know, this data center resolution to point to, which had been adopted unanimously. Next slide, Pete, please. So basically the question is, why did PJM launch this critical issue fast path process? It's really what you're seeing on this slide here is the growing demand of energy from the data centers. And so the question is how to integrate this 32 gigawatts of new load that's coming, mostly from data centers. And the rules that PGM, is designing, it will direct how the June 2026 capacity auction happens and sets the prices for the 28-29 delivery year. And so the important thing to realize is that like the old rules, like if nothing changes according to the old rules, the PJM region could collectively pay $163 billion more by 2033. And that translates to about $70 per month for the average household. And so that is kind of, we've got this new reality with this huge demand, but we're playing by the old rules. So if nothing changes, that could be the outcome. Um, and so I mentioned earlier that it was the independent market monitor who had talked about these cost increases. They said, according to this independent market monitor, the capacity cost jumped from 2.2 billion in the 24-25 year to 14.7 billion in the 25-26 year. And over like 75% of that was due to these data centers. And so the fundamental question that everybody's arguing about in this fast path process was who is going to pay for this growth? And when we run out of power, whose power gets turned off first? The next slide goes into a bit more detail on this. You guys did a great job. They warned me that this slide wasn't going to look good, but it looks great, probably better than it had looked before. But here are just some of the key questions. So, like that the whole PJM process was about. Do data centers have the right to be supplied by the market? Who pays for the necessary infrastructure? How long should we extend the current capacity market price cap? What do we do if PJM runs out of power and we have rolling blackouts? Can we accelerate the process of adding new generation? And how do we address load forecasting challenges? So all of these entities with financial interests were putting in their proposals. And, I worked really closely with Delegate Charkoudian on this, and I believe she's probably joining us next. But there was a bunch of us that formed this PJM Legislators Collaborative. And we had, I think, over 75 legislators from the 13 states in DC who joined together and we put in our own proposal to how to answer these questions in a way that would still allow data centers to connect, but also protect the pocketbooks and the reliability of all of you. Next slide, please. Um, so I don't expect you to read this. Bridget can put the link to the executive summary, but this is the executive summary of the proposal that the PJM Legislators Collaborative put in. Now, where we are in the process is that PJM is moving very slowly. What happened when we voted is everybody kind of voted for their own proposal plus a couple other ones, and so they all failed. And PJM is now, it's up to the board of directors to do something. And the recent FERC order from December said that they needed to respond by January 19th. So it'll be very interesting in 9 days to see what they actually say, whether they just do like a minor tweak and then say we have to go into a second phase of the critical issue fast path. But many of us, including myself, feel like there are proposals on the table that are comprehensive proposals that would solve the issue. And PJM just needs to make a good decision and not side with the major generators and the data centers, but do something that is good for everybody in the network. But anyways, just briefly, if you could read this slide, what it would say is that the Legislators Collaborative worked with NRDC to pull together many of the strongest elements of the proposals into a single cohesive framework. And if I had to sum it up in one line, it would be that data centers can connect to the grid as fast as they want, but they remain interruptible until they bring their own capacity. And so some of the details, of course, the devil's always in the details. But under our approach, PJM would stop buying capacity on behalf of the data centers that have not secured their own supply. And instead, this firm service would be tied directly to the amount of new capacity a data center adds to the system. And that change alone would have saved the region over $100 billion by 2033 in capacity costs. So and I think we got a lot of pushback because data centers do want 100% uninterruptible. Some of them do. But as you'll hear from Delegate Charkoudian next, there are ways where if you just make them a little bit more flexible, and some of the good ones are willing to do this, we can save that $100 billion. Um, so there were a few other things in this proposal, and I'll just wrap up this segment so I can go on to the next thing. But we also supported improved load forecasting to eliminate the speculative projects and reduce unnecessary overbuilding. We supported a temporary extension of the capacity price collar, which was in the governor's proposal, to prevent continued price spikes. And we were really clear that there had to be fair treatment for generators already in the connection queue, many of which are renewable energy and other forms of distributed generation that have been waiting years to interconnect, and we can't put those on the back burner for those data centers. Um, so the last slide that I have here on this part of my PJM update, if you'll go to the next one, it just shows you all of the legislators from all of the states who are able to work with us. And there is a picture of me and the PJM team up there at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Um, and so ultimately, like, I feel like this is a problem of, physics, not politics, and the board really has the responsibility to choose a solution that fully protects the reliability and the affordability of the existing ratepayers. And hopefully they will do that. So switching gears, I mean, and just to say that, I mean, I could talk about this PJM process forever, but I know I don't have that much time. If anybody wants to follow up offline, I'm happy to send you our proposal, our executive summary, anything you want to know about PJM in this process. But moving on for now, I have two bills I wanted to talk about. Um, the first one is a data center tax credit alteration. And so we've had a tax credit. We currently offer a tax incentive to data centers, but we don't really ask for very much in return. And so many states and most of Europe have switched so that their tax incentives go towards projects that reduce strain on the grid, have lower emissions, and deliver these long-term benefits. Um, and so we want to make sure that we're using our tax incentives to show that this is not a race to a bottom, but a race towards smarter and more responsible growth. Next slide, please. And so the legislation, I mean, this is a fairly simple bill compared to the next one, um, but and it shouldn't say this is still on the tax center bill, but basically we would be changing our existing tax credit so that the data center would have to meet certain energy efficiency or greenhouse gas performance targets. And the main metric that we're using is that they would have to have a power usage effectiveness score of not more than 1.2, and at least 50% of the energy they procure is clean. And then we instruct that MEA to promulgate regulations to meet these two goals. And so I just personally feel that if the state should be encouraging growth, but should be encouraging growth in a way that aligns with our climate goals and protects ratepayers. So that is a simple tax credit bill. We'll have to see how simple it is to get passed, but would love all of your support in advocating for that bill. Um, the next bill is the large load registry, and this is much more complicated. But basically, what we've seen at the state level is that we really want better visibility into what is coming. And so that this bill establishes a large load registry, which require the data centers to submit their key information into one place. And the goal is to get more of this information in order to enable smarter planning. It will give policymakers and regulators a clear picture of where these large loads are locating, and that by creating this shared, reliable data foundation, we can plan better for the center. And just if you look currently across these different agencies, and this is just the state level, it doesn't even include the local level, but there's no comprehensive visibility into where the large loads are locating, how much power they need, or what their water and infrastructure impacts are. And so it's MDE, DNR, PSC, MEA, Department of Commerce. They're all kind of working in silos on various pieces of this puzzle. And so this centralized large load registry would bring them together along with the county planning process to make coordinated decisions. So there's four components to the bill. And if we go to the next slide, I'll just talk about the first one here. The first one, part of the large load registry, is a state and local permitting and siting board. And the point of this board is to look across the state and identify places that could be better for data centers than others. And this board would ensure that the relevant data, water, environmental impacts, energy is in one place, and really to find places where they could be a better fit than others. And if you think about it, there's already different legislation happening at the local level about, incentivizing or banning or waiting on data centers. And because there's such limited natural resources like water and such limited energy, it really, whichever data center comes first, it can suck the resources. Like if it takes all the water, that's available in one watershed, it can affect one county, but it can also affect the next county over. So that is part of the reason why I think it's really important that we have a state level overview of how these things work, and recommend some places where it would make sense to fast track data centers if we want to have them anywhere. So moving on to the next bit, next slide here. Um, the large load registries, like I said, trying to improve the transmission, the transparency. And so here you just can see some of the different things that would need to be considered in the registry, everything from transmission capacity upgrades to information from PJM, load forecasts, environmental impacts. And then we'll move it to it later, but basically, once we have knowledge of like who is coming, then we can put some of them on a fast track. And that I believe is the next slide, or maybe not. Yes. Um, so under this proposal, when the center completes its large load registry, it can then choose to apply for the fast track in the permitting process. And to be eligible, this is going to sound familiar from our experience working with PJM, the data center must commit to several things or a combination of these things. And we're not saying they can't come without these things. We're saying that if they come with these things, they will move faster than otherwise. And so these things are bringing new generation that can deliver power to the facility or agree to provide a demand side product that helps the grid. Or there was the third thing. That flexibility, that is the bill that Delegate Charkoudian will talk about later. And so whether they're bringing storage or new generation or flexibility, those are the three key things that would then allow them to move, in this large load registry to the fast track process. Final slide here, moving on one more, is around curtailment. Is it not there? That's okay. Let me just, the slides got mixed up a little bit, but that's totally fine. There was another slide that talked about curtailment. And so this is also just giving, making sure that the state has a position in temporarily reducing the power during times of peak demand or grid stress. And we all know that the benefits, that there is a huge benefit that these data centers can bring to grid stability, but we also know that we need to be able to curtail them during certain times. And so this bill would empower the state to have a seat at the table when those decisions are being made. Um, so that's the end of that second bill. There's a few other bills I just wanted to mention. I think I said that the demand response bill, the Delegate Charkoudian has been leading on. I'm very delighted to be helping her with that. I think Emily covered the utility cost recovery limitations, which will be SB2, and I'm happy to be working on that. And then there's also a third bill, which mostly goes to the cost savings side, but that is called the Savings Act and really is designed to encourage the utilities to do more, to consider more options, more non-wires alternatives, so that they have different, when they come for these ratepayer hearings, the PSC will be asking them, for their least cost alternative. And so that's a summary of everything that I've got, Matt. I really thank you for the opportunity to present today and really would appreciate your support and everybody's support in getting some of these bigger, more controversial bills over the finish line.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much, Senator. Just first, for the people who do want to get involved, should they email you, or do you have your chief of staff or anybody that you'd like for them to get in contact? You can please let everyone know there.
Great question, Matt. Just the email that's on the slide right now, katiefry.hester@senate.maryland.gov. That is the correct email, and we'll both see it.
That's great. And I'm not going to let you go just yet because I got a few questions that
Oh,
I
okay.
can answer. Yeah, great. So, sticking with the data center theme here, the question that came in is the projected energy usage by data centers is clearly unsustainable. All of our energy savings is being wiped out by these increases. The current centers will likely become obsolete as the industry evolves and speculation settles down. Would it not be wise to look at this investment from that perspective? I think from the perspective of these data centers becoming obsolete.
That's a great question. I mean, I think that, whether they're here in Maryland or here in another state or are obsolete here or obsolete in another state, they're all going to be influenced by PJM because we're tied together um, in the capacity market. And so um, I guess it's a really interesting question, but and I like the long-term thinking. Um, but I don't have a great answer except that we have to think broadly long term, but not only just in Maryland, across the entire PJM area.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Another question that came in about data centers, it's asking, do data centers bring their own capacity? And does that mean more gas turbines and associated emissions needed for those data centers?
So in our bill, we're hoping that they will bring some kind of clean energy, right? But there to bring their own capacity, that would be like their firm service above like up above whatever they contract with PJM for at a certain level. Then if it goes into a peak, then they'd have to bring their own generation. And once again, it could be a gas turbine, it could be a diesel generator, which would be horrible. But we are hoping to incentivize that they will do something with either battery storage, solar, or some other clean kind of energy.
Yeah, yeah, great. I've got a couple more if you're willing to sit
Yep,
tight.
keep going. I'll do the best I
Yeah.
can.
So another one, does any type of new energy generation, i.e. gas, coal, or nuclear, qualify for fast track?
So we're still waiting for the language to come back, right? But our intent was that we would hope that it would be clean, and that would include nuclear or small modular reactors, which hopefully will be here in 7 to 8 years. But it would sorry, it's it is important that they do bring their own. And for the fast track, I think that we've said that we're going to incentivize it if it is of the clean version.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of good sense. So you've got more questions coming in than I think we have time to answer live. If you're able to answer those, head over to the Q&A feature and maybe answer those through text. I'm sure the audience would really appreciate that.
Okay, I'll do the best that I can. Thanks so much, Matt, and thank you
Yeah.
everybody for tuning in. Have a
Oh,
great
yeah.
day.